What if I told you that in 1906, in the city of New York, you could pay 25 cents to see a human being locked in a monkey house? What if I told you that scientists called him the missing link, and mothers held their children closer as they passed his cage? Now imagine surviving the massacre of your people, only to be captured, transported across an ocean, and displayed inside a zoo beside monkeys. Caged, displayed, watched like an animal, and thousands of people, civilized people, came to stare at him. His name was Ota Benga, and the world must never forget what was done to him. You see, sometimes I think Africans do not fully understand what colonialism really was. We speak about stolen land, stolen identity, but colonialism also tried to steal something deeper, something much deeper: humanity itself. Ota Benga was not born in a cage. He was born in the Congo. Before America turned him into an exhibit, before the chains, before the zoos, before the word pygmy became a slur, there was a forest called Ituri, the Ituri rainforest, deep in the Congo, where the trees touched the sky, and the Umbuti people sang the songs of the elephants. They understood the grammar of the river, and there was Ota Benga born. He became a husband, a father, a man with a name that meant something in his own tongue. But then came the violence. The colonial world arrived with guns, flags, Bibles, all wrapped in the language of progress. You see, the Congo Free State under King Leopold II of Belgium between 1885 and 1908 became one of the most brutal colonial nightmares in human history. To meet robber quarters, the Force Publique, a private colonial army, mutilated, murdered, and burned villages. Hand-cutting became one of the most infamous symbols of Leopold's Congo. They would chop off hands if you can't meet up with the quotas, even children. Soldiers of the Force Publique were often required to account for every bullet they fired. So severed hands became proof that ammunition had been used. Villages that failed to meet robber quarters faced brutal punishment. Men, women, even children were not spared. Now, historians estimate that millions of Congolese perished during this period, with some estimates reaching as high as 10 million. Now, this was the word that chartered Ota Benga's life. In 1898 to 1900, soldiers attacked the Umbuti village where Ota Benga lived with his wife and children. During the raid, his wife and children were murdered. After his family's death, Ota Benga was captured by the Force Publique. He was enslaved, traded, and eventually sold to a European-American businessman, Samuel Phillips Werner. And here's where the story becomes even more uncomfortable. Samuel Phillips Werner was an American missionary. Now think about that for a moment. A missionary, a man supposedly carrying a message of Christian love, mercy, human dignity, and salvation. Yet, he became involved in the acquisition and transport of African people for exhibition in the United States. The same man, the same missionary, was commissioned to capture and exhibit African tribespeople for the Human Zoo at the Louisiana Purchase Exposition of 1904 in St. Louis, Missouri. The same colonial world that spoke endlessly about saving African souls often showed remarkably little concern for African humanity. He bought Ota Benga and promised to return him to the Congo. But instead, he exhibited him in the US as a pygmy curiosity. Varner later wrote that Ota Benga was like a brother. Think about that. Now, Ota Benga watched white families eat cotton candy while staring at his teeth. He learned the taste of being looked at like an animal. But St. Louis was only the rehearsal, because what happened next was even darker. The Bronx Zoo. Imagine this. It is September 1906. The monkey house at the Bronx Zoo. A sign above the enclosure. The African pygmy, Ota Benga, age 23, height 4 feet, 11 inches, weight 103 pounds. And next to him, a chimp named Dog. They gave him a bow and an arrow. They encouraged him to show his teeth. And the crowds came, thousands, every day. Parents pointing, children laughing. A New York Times headline called him the missing link. Not a man, a theory with a cage number. Think about that carefully. The same word that called Africans savage put a human being in a cage for entertainment. And they still had the audacity, the temerity to lecture Africa about civilization. Now, some black clergymen begged. They begged the zoo to free him. The zoo said no. He wasn't suffering. Imagine, he was not suffering. While men with degrees debated whether you had a soul, they said he wasn't suffering. But how do you unlearn being called a monkey in 1,000 languages? How do you wake up from a nightmare that had paying customers? You see, some wounds do not end when the cage opens. And this is the part that breaks me. Many Africans today still defend colonialism emotionally. They built schools. What Europeans left, look at South Africa, look at this, look at that. They brought cages. What kind of civilization cages another human being? So on March 20, 1916, 17 years after he was stolen from his home, Ota Benga walked into the Virginia woods. He built a small fire, the way his father taught him. He removed the caps from his teeth, the ones filed sharp as a young man. Now a memory of a life he could never return to. He sang one last Mbuti song, and then he took his life. An African man destroyed by a civilization that called itself superior. They buried him in an unmarked grave. No monument, no ceremony, just another black body in American soil. You see, when we speak with pain about colonialism, most times, even among us, someone says, that was a long time ago. Move on. But how do you move on from a world that once debated whether your people were even human? So why this story? Because Ota Benga is not history. He is a question. How many cages are we still building today? Now, the tragedy of Ota Benga is not that they put an African man in a zoo. The tragedy is that an entire civilization looked at him, and many could not see the cage they had built around their own humanity. Ota Benga was never the animal in that story. History has already told us who the real animals were. Rest in power, Ota Benga. Africa remembers.